In this lesson, we will learn how to set up our development environment in order to begin developing our HTML5 game for cross-platform and especially for mobile platforms. So as you can see here, we've got open our basic text editor. Now, my preferred text editor of choice is Sublime Text 3, but you are, of course, welcome to use whatever text editor that you are most comfortable with. Now what we've got here is the basic view. I've already loaded in our project, as you can see here, with the file tree. Now I prefer not to use the file tree as I feel it clutters the interface. So on a Mac, you simply press Command KB, and that will close that and leaves you with this nice, clean, minimalist text editor view. Now, Sublime Text does have a really great fuzzy search feature. If you press Command P, that lets you see all of the files in your file structure as well. You can easily just scroll right through them. It's an actual live preview. It actually does load the file into that. You can also search through it as well. So the first one I'd like to point out is Pixie.js, which we can see here. It's a really great JavaScript framework specifically for games, but especially for Canvas and using WebGL. And what's really impressive about Pixie.js and what's made it a really popular choice for HTML5 game development is that it actually defaults to WebGL. And the way that they've done that is they've actually taken the Canvas API and recreated it with WebGL, which allows for dramatically better performance on any browsers that support WebGL, which these days is most of them. Now we've got a few other libraries in here. Let's take a look at Tween.js. This is another really nice open source JavaScript library for tweening. It's very well maintained and allows for basic and advanced tweening usage, which you'll see where that's being used here shortly. So let's go ahead and before we take a look at our game, let's go ahead and finish setting up our text editor setup. We can go ahead and close those files out. Let's go ahead and open up our actual index.html. And as you can see, we're loading in Pixie.js, Tween.js, and our game.js. So let's go ahead and open up game.js. Again, Command P, and then we can type game.js. It does a fuzzy search match, and here it is. Here is our game file. As you can see, it's fairly straightforward, fairly basic, about 270 lines of code. Another feature of Sublime Text that I really like to take advantage of is the multiple panes. So the keyboard shortcut for that is Command Option and then the number of panes that you would like. So 2, 3, 4, whatever you would like. I like to use 2. This gives a nice split screen view, and we can edit both of our files at the same time. Another great thing that I take advantage of quite often is that you can actually open 2 of the same file. And especially for these longer files like this, you can edit multiple areas of the same file at the same time, which is certainly quite handy. So let's go ahead and see this game running in action before we take a look at the code a little more closely. So I've got our browser pointed at the file system towards our index.html. Let's go ahead and load that up. And as you can see, we've got Stone Samurai here. However, it does look a little strange with the fully black background. So let's go ahead and take a look at the developer console, which we will be using quite often here in Chrome. Now to open that, it's simply Command Option J. And we can see straight away with this red text that we do have an error. And in this case, it's a cross-origin resource sharing error, which is a security error in Chrome and in all browsers. And it's pretty obvious right away what's causing this. We are trying to load in some images, and when you're doing that into Canvas, you need to be using a local web server. You can't run it from the file system. So there's multiple ways to go about doing this, but the favorite method that I've found for Mac is a little application called Anvil. It's a nice little menu bar application, as you can see here, that makes it extremely easy to set up your development environment. So I've already got this installed. Let me just open it up here. As you can see, I've got a few other sites already configured. We'll click the plus. We'll navigate to our Digital Tutors files folder. and it just creates it with the folder name. We can of course also change that. So let's go ahead and call it SS for Stone Samurai, and now we've got ss.dev available. So let's visit that in Chrome. And yes, that looks much better. So now our background image is loading. We have no error anymore. Again, Command Option J lets us open and close the development environment. So let's go ahead and just play through this really quickly so we can see what our base HTML5 game is. You can click on these stones. You can probably see pretty quickly what inspired our fantastic little Stone Samurai HTML5 game. As you can see up here, we have our points updating, our lives. Each time we lose a stone, like this one right here, we lose a life. And once we run out of lives, it's game over. Okay, so that's our basic game. We can take a look at the code real quickly here. So we've defined our game. This is essentially our init, where we define some base settings. We set up our renderer, which is a Pixie.js concept. That's essentially setting up our canvas. And then there's this concept of the stage, a Pixie stage, which is where everything visual gets added to before it can be seen by the player. Now we're setting up our prototype with our various different methods. Our build method, which sets everything up visually. We've got our background. We set up our menu with the title. Very easy to do all of this through Pixie, all of this visual rendering through the wonderful API that's been created over the past couple of years by the Pixie.js contributors. Okay, we keep going here. We start the game. That's what happens after we fire the click event on that play button, which starts firing off some random rocks. Now we could just scroll down to that method, or we could use a really cool feature in Sublime Text, which is normally most useful when you're using multiple files, but it works just as well inside of the same file. We simply click on our method name, and then we press Command Option and then the down arrow, which will jump straight to the definition of that method. Incredibly handy, and again, it does work fantastically between separate files. So here's our random rocks file. Again, it generates a random millisecond time between 1 and 5 seconds, and then it sets the timer, which then creates our sprite for our rock that's going to get launched into the air. And this is where the tweens come in. So we've got a few basic tweens with some easing set up to create that nice sort of semi-physics simulation. So we did have the option to set up an actual physics simulation here. There are a lot of great JavaScript libraries for that, but for the basic usage that we require, it seemed to be a bit overkill, and tweens would be much more performant. And then finally, we've got our tick here, which running with request animation frame will sync up our animations with the players, with the screen refresh rate for the player. So that's a quick overview of our game. We can jump back up to the top of the file here. And we've now learned how to get our basic environment set up for development. In the next lesson, we'll be looking at touch events in order to get our game working on mobile at a base level.